Oops.
Yeah, I think it's still here now.
All right. All right. Hey, I've got a chat going with Sean. Sean, if you can hear me, can you send me a note?
He just said he's on a trip somewhere.
Oh, he's out. He's out. Okay. Let's see. I want to unmute these guys so I can get some feedback from them. Who is out there on the phone? Let me know if you can hear what I'm saying. How about Conrad? Conrad, are you live?
That's for like Laura Lee or Calvin or Larry.
Okay. Yeah, Laura Lee, Calvin, Larry, can you hear me? I'm getting worried. Doesn't sound good. Well. All right, do we need to dial back in? Vince, can you? You can hear? Well, I'm sitting right next to the thing right here. Yeah. Yeah, Vince can hear, so it sounds like we're good. Okay. What'd you say? Somebody has a hand up?
Conrad had his hand up. Got a question on that? Oh, we can hear you now.
Okay. All right. Yeah, so they can hear me now. All right, I'm going back into screen mode here, guys. Back into slideshow.
Will you mind?
I'm trying. All right. So if you have any questions, you can contact me or Steve. And now we're going to jump into some content. Did I miss anything? All right. So Analytics 10 rights. So there are a couple new entities that you'll run into as you go into Analytics 10. And what I really want to share on this slide is that we are leveraging a lot of the existing, or a couple of the existing rights within the product today, in order to enable the new entities. So you'll see these things as we go through the presentation today. So we'll come back to them. But the concepts of space and public groups are going to be out there, and these today are governed by profile rights. So basically, if you're in a position of having the ability to edit and create profiles, you will have the ability to edit and create a public group or a space. So it's about as simple as that. And if we have any questions about that, we can come back to that a little bit later. Campaigns, there's a new campaign entity that we'll talk about a little bit later, and that is governed by custom report rights. And effectively what's happening, if you create a campaign, you're going to be generating a custom report under the covers. And then so if you have the ability to create and edit custom reports, you'll have the ability to create and edit campaigns within Analytics 10. So access rights to profiles themselves has not changed. So that's still similar to what you see within the product in on-demand or Insight. And access to reports in a profile still respects those same rights as you see in Insight today, where it's really your superset of profiles that you have access to via the profile or via any one of the templates that you have access to for that profile. So if you're familiar with the Insight rules for accessing reports and profiles, you will have the same rights here for Analytics 10. And then around the ability to create spaces, which we're going to get into in a minute here, as far as the what the different spaces are out there. So we've got going to break the space types into four categories here. So we've got site spaces, which is what we're all familiar with today. We've been tracking sites for many years at Webtrends. Facebook page spaces, Facebook app spaces, and then mobile app spaces, of which there are several different varieties of mobile app. So For an account, this is account level settings. For an account to be able to create any one of these space types, there are a couple of settings that we're going to have initially in the system. So for site, all accounts are set to on. For Facebook pages, all accounts are set to on, so anybody can create one of those. Again, if you have profile create rights. For Facebook apps, accounts are set to off. And then for mobile apps, we respect the existing mobile license bit that is governed by a handful of mobile SKUs that are in the system. Now, so these will be the initial settings for accounts. We will have overrides for certain accounts, though. So there are a handful of accounts in that top row that will turn off, that are going to be today mobile only or Facebook only accounts. It's a very, very small number of accounts. We have the flexibility to turn Facebook page off for customers. And then for the Facebook apps, which can be a combination of analyzed data as well as Facebook API data, there's an override to turn certain accounts on as well. So this will be a product management sales decision on whether to turn things on. Same thing for mobile app. If there are customers that we elect to turn on who may not have the mobile license or the mobile SKUs, we have the ability to turn that as well. So these are just some levers that we put in place. This override, the MC override, is under the control of ops. So this could come through a support request or an ops request if there's an exception that needs to be made for customers. Okay, so there's some flexibility there in terms of being able to override those settings.
Like the Facebook app on will likely be with a group of customers who've already bought the Facebook app.
That's what Facebook Analytics will have the Facebook app turned on. We're going to that list right now to ensure that it's consistent with what they have today.
Right. If you missed it on the phone, the Facebook app row on the screen, the account, there will be a number of accounts that are going to be turned on before the go live, and those will be customers who have purchased Facebook Analytics today, and we'll just be turning those on manually at this point.
Do you think that order management will have control over that?
Order management absolutely has control of the bottom one, the mobile SKU, and eventually the Facebook app piece as well. So I don't want to get into any details because they're not finalized, but there's new pricing / packaging that's going to be coming out in July that's going to probably affect how all this stuff works. But this is the way it's going to be when we roll out the first day. And then another area where there is some control, there are some external data source controls within the settings of Analytics 10. You have the ability to control, as an administrator on the account, you have the ability to control whether or not these data sources are going to appear in your Analytics 10 spaces. So it's a little hard to see, a little small print here, but in the top half there you see the ability to turn on or off iTunes Connect data, which comes into iOS spaces if it's turned on, and your post-rank score, which would come into a site space if that's turned on as well. So those are account level on and off. These are not profile level. This is account level on and off. So if an account says, hey, we don't want post-rank to be appearing, they come in here and turn this thing off, and it's off. And then as far as streaming social data that comes in on the page dashboard, these are going to be things that are retrieved live. So if you don't want these as an account, you can turn these things off as well. So that's post-rank mentions, going up post-rank, Bitly clicks, Twitter mentions, and Facebook likes. So these are page-level data that's retrieved. But again, you turn this off at the account level or turn it on at the account level. So what I really wanted to share, there's a couple things on the rights and where you have some controls. I think some of this stuff will make more sense as you get into the system and see a little bit more. All right. And then another area under administration. So under settings within Insight today, you have a very few things. You can control your own settings, your own preferences. We do have a couple of basic things you can change related to the account if you're an administrator. But we've also added in basic user admin in here. You have the ability to add a user, edit a user, delete a user. So this was added in kind of earlier on for those of you who are familiar with BlackBerry, but this is also here now with Analytics 10. So this is where an administrator can go inside of Analytics 10 for administering users, administering those data sources, and just to be clear that this data sources reference you see on this screen is the external data sources that I just showed you.
Can you use that same screen to add roles as well, or just users?
Cannot add roles in the screen at this point, right? You can assign roles here. And another good point, so the question was, can you add roles? The answer is no, you cannot add roles. You can select a role for a customer as you create them. And you also do not have the ability in this interface to do custom rights. So that's an example of one of those things you'd be going back to on-demand to do is if you want to set custom rights at the individual right level, individual profile / template level, that's back in on-demand. Right. So then one thing I want to introduce is the concept of spaces within Analytics 10. So this is kind of a new entity that you will become very familiar with soon. And really, spaces, you can think of it fairly simply as really a way of organizing profiles. So a space is really the digital property that you're going to be tracking. So it could be a website that you're tracking, and it may have one or more profiles included in it. And it's really just considered a way of organizing the profile list. So under the Space Create area, so this is a snapshot of the Analytics 10 interface, and that left nav in the upper left corner is where you'll see spaces, and that's kind of one of your key points within the Analytics 10 interface, where you have the ability to create a space with the little plus button by spaces. And then you can select your space type and then and go through the workflow. And one of the hallmarks that we're trying to get to with Analytics 10 is really the time to value and the ease of setting up a new space to track for a new customer. So as you know, our old on-demand interface that we're famous for has numerous bells and whistles when you go to set up a profile. That's where those bells and whistles are still going to stay, but for basic setup, you can go through this Analytics 10 interface, and really for the new space types that we're going to be creating, your best bet's going to be going through the Analytics 10 interface. So the space types that you will see right off the bat, again, this is going to be governed by those settings that we talked about a little bit earlier. So everyone will see site, unless for very few customers we turn that off. Everyone will see Facebook page. Facebook app will be seen by those customers who have the Facebook Analytics today that we turn on. And then the last 5 there, the different mobile app types, those will all be available to those people who have the mobile SKUs enabled on their account. So these are the 8 space types that you can select once you go into Analytics 10 right off the bat. So this is obviously an account that has all of this stuff enabled, has mobile enabled, Facebook app enabled, and they're able to select anything that we want. And then for those of you who are familiar with BlackBerry Analytics powered by Webtrends, that's really a pretty small subset of people out here. The BlackBerry app space that you're creating here is really different than what you're seeing in BlackBerry Analytics. So just, if that doesn't make any sense to you, then you're probably not working with BlackBerry or with RIM, so you can probably ignore that. And then there is no, I want to make a point, there is no mobile website space. So for the time being, you would use the website space type in order to select if you want a mobile website. Because really the mobile apps are really very geared around setting up your app with one of the SDKs or the DC API. All right. So I think I'm going to jump in and just kind of go through pretty quickly in one of our test environments. So I apologize in advance if anything goes badly here, but this is the working login screen for Analytics 10, and I'm just going to go ahead and log in as one of our customers in this environment. And I will also mention that we've had 4 pre-release customers that have been working with us over the last month or so. Have had access to kind of various iterations of the kind of in-process product. So we've been working with Motorola, Coca-Cola, 3M, and Logitech on and off with a couple of key people at those organizations. So this is all in our test environments. But what I wanted to take you through is just kind of a quick space setup. So if you were at Engage, you saw something along these lines as well. So if I'm coming in here, I see the list of spaces that I just saw. I'm going to go ahead and set up a Facebook page space. So the first thing I need to do here is connect to Facebook and enter some credentials. So I'm borrowing my wife's organization's credentials. So that's me. I'm an admin on her account, or a developer on her account. So I can log in. That's taking me into Facebook, grabbing some information about any of the pages where I'm a developer, and then giving me that set of credentials here. So now I have credentials for the Children's Book Bank here, and I can select that, and then we retrieve the pages that I have access to in Facebook. So then once I go in here, I can choose one of these pages. I'm going to choose this first one, select a time zone, and this should actually just be Facebook only here, since it's a Facebook page. Save that. All right, my space has been created. Now I'm going to come back in here. I'm going to go into my channel, which we'll talk about a little bit later. My channel is, and there's my Facebook page that has just been created for me. So what I really wanted to emphasize there is that as you go through, and each of the space setups are going to be very similar to that. Where as you go through, you're going to have a pretty quick setup process. It's going to be kind of very, very graphical and very visible. You won't have all the bells and whistles that you have within profile setup within On Demand, but you'll have a pretty big or pretty quick feedback on that. So that was what I was apologizing for in advance with that, because this is a test environment that we're still working on and making updates to. All right.
Mike?
Yeah.
So on the site creation, I know there's not lots of bells and whistles, but like if we create a website page, can we do some like basic filtering, like filtering out internal company traffic or anything like that?
Yeah. So good question. So if we create if you create a site space, can you add things to it? Can you add filtering and so on to it? You cannot do that in Analytics 10. However, what you can do, if you're going to be going in and adding your own filters or URL rebuilding or switching data sources or adding data sources, you can still do that on the profile that just got created for you within On Demand. So when you create a profile or a space type here, when you create a space here, you're creating a profile that's going to be visible in On Demand. So On Demand and Analytics 10 are fully cross-compatible. So as you created here, and if you want to go back and, hey, I've got a set of 20 customer reports that I always have in all my profiles, you can go back there and you can create it. Also, you can create that profile in On Demand today. If that's something that you're an admin and you're very familiar with that, you can create that profile in On Demand, and you can do whatever you need to do there. And we'll talk a little bit later about how profiles that have been created previously or that get created after this go live, how those get mapped into spaces, and that's all being worked right now, is how that is going to be, how this is going to get mapped. Yep.
So if you create a new site space here, it's going to use global definitions for the profiles with regards to filters, session tracking.
Well, it is going to use a set of default definitions. In fact, Chris might answer that question better than I can.
The settings are going to be much the same as if you walk through the basic user untouched. Yeah, the exception would be the analytics created by that. Sure.
I'll have like the complete template reports by default.
They'll have templates that are aligned to each of these bits. Their new template is going to be installed.
Yeah, so the question around was about if you go through the Analytics 10 interface and create a site space, what are you going to get your global default settings? And so the answer was it's really similar to it if you were to go through your create profile wizard within On Demand, and the default settings that you get there will be very similar. However, there are a new set of out-of-box reports for site that we'll talk about shortly, and there's also going to be a new template that comes along with that gets created by default. Yep.
Can you copy a profile?
You cannot copy a profile here. However, you can copy a profile still as you can today in on-demand. So I know a lot of customers will probably kind of do that as a matter of course. They get a profile definition that they like with all the filters and reports, et cetera, in it today. And if they want another one that's just like it with a different data source, they would copy that. All that capability still remains, and that's, and if that's the case where a customer needs to do that, that may be the best practice for that customer to copy a profile and just say, I've got it all set up the way I want it. I'm going to copy it, and I'll experiment with this Analytics 10 stuff, but I can still move on the way I can. I can still copy profiles like I have before.
So if I created a profile in Analytics 10, can I now use this profile from Analytics 10, or do I actually
you can delete a space here within Analytics 10, which will delete the profiles associated with it. Can you delete just the profile? I don't think there's not a delete profile function within Analytics 10. Delete space is there. Yeah, Chris.
So if we're talking about Analytics 10 here, you can remove the analytics from it by editing the post-string. But if the space is based purely off of analytics,
All right, and so I'll go as quickly as I can through this slide, but we're really talking about, let me get back to slideshow. Really talking about what are the different space types that are available. So I've broken site space into really 3 types because you have an option of choosing Webtrends or PostRank or Webtrends and PostRank whenever you do a site space. So PostRank gives you a small amount of data externally, and Webtrends is what we know and love as our Webtrends analyzed data. So you have those 3 options with site, and that will dictate what data you get from an external source and what data you get and what are the reports that you will get. So for a Facebook app, you get data from the Facebook API as well as Webtrends analyzed data. For a Facebook page, it's purely Facebook API data. And then for the mobile site, the one mobile site to call out that is going to allow you to get external data is the iOS app or the iPhone or iPad apps. You have the ability to just get iTunes data, where you get iTunes Connect statistics from the iTunes store, or you can also say I want Webtrends only, which is the SDK-based data that you get from the iOS apps, or Webtrends plus iTunes. And then other than that, the reports that you'll get for the mobile spaces will be very similar. There's a couple of differences across the different mobile apps depending on how the data is collected there. But the mobile app spaces are all very similar, but the SDKs are different, and that's part of the, one of the reasons why they're all different space types is as you go through and select your space type for the Android app, for example, you're going to be pointed at the end of that process to our Android SDK. All right. And then, so the Spaces dashboard, which we saw briefly in the screen that I showed you. So the Spaces dashboard is really the place where you see all the spaces that you've created of all the different types. So you've got your site spaces, your Facebook spaces, and your mobile app spaces all there. So they're all organized. There's a couple different views. You've got you'll have your thumbnail view, or your picture view, and also a list view if you want to kind of put more things on the screen. And that's dictated by, right next to this show button, we've got the thumbnail view, and then you've got your list view as well. And then the ability to select key metrics is there as well. So this is one of the changes that you'll see from Insight to Analytics 10 is that key metrics list in Insight is always the same thing because everything at that point was considered a site space. So today we've got things that are considered site, mobile, and social spaces of a couple different flavors. and they all have slightly different metrics. So some of the metrics are common, like views are fairly common across all the spaces, and visits are common across a couple of them, and we may call them sessions within mobile apps and visits within site spaces. But as you choose these metrics, that metric will appear in your spark line and your key metric for those spaces for which that metric is valid. So if you choose fans, for example, that's something that's only valid for your Facebook spaces, and you'll only see the metric for the Facebook spaces. All right. And then this is just the view that I mentioned earlier about the thumbnail or the list view. So the thumbnail view is kind of the more attractive view where you've got the ability to see, here's the thumbnail of that site space or the thumbnail that I uploaded, or I've got kind of the more dense view showing the list of the different space types with a little icon showing at least what space type it is. So I've got Androids and Blackberries and site spaces in there along with Facebook. Okay. And then a little bit of word about thumbnails. So each time you go through and create a space, where it makes sense, like if you put in a domain, we go out and try to grab that thumbnail from that domain, or that screenshot from that domain. If you put in a Facebook page, as you saw when I did one a little bit earlier, we go out to Facebook and we grab that thumbnail from that Facebook page. But you also have the ability to either leave the default, which is a screenshot that we capture daily, or you can upload your own image. So as you upload your own image, that becomes the image that is the thing that you see on your Spaces dashboard for that space type, for that space. So when you go in and create, you've got that option. Any space thumbnails that are out there, we refresh those on a daily basis with a regular job. There's a weekly refresh for the URL thumbnails at the more detailed level for any URL thumbnails that are stored. And then when you go ahead and choose your own image, there are a couple of limitations listed here. Actually, these are limitations right here for the top two, or for sites that we're going out to and grabbing the image. So if a site requires a login, we can't really capture that one. Flash and PDF are not likely to render properly. Like I believe they don't render properly on your image here. And then if you do a custom, you are limited to 740K and supporting of these three file types here of JPEGs, JFs, and PNG file types. And then it gets resized and uploaded, or resized upon upload, and then stored within within the database, so that when you come back to that space, that custom image is stored there with it. Okay. And then for those people who are familiar with the Insight profiles list, so really as you come into Insight, you've got there are a couple different views of the profile list within Insight, but the classic view is just kind of the list that shows you the full list. That is still going to be available here. So for all the profiles that are underlying all these spaces, you still have the ability, if you want to find a profile by going into the list. If you want to get back to that view, you have that ability to click on profiles, and that'll show you all the profiles again with a little icon that shows you what type that profile is. Yep.
I think it's worth pointing out that this profiles will not show up if there's a one-to-one space in the profile now.
Yeah, that's a good point. So the point that Chris made was that this profiles option will get collapsed out of the menu if there's a one-to-one mapping between all your spaces and all your profiles. Because if you create a mobile app space within Analytics 10, you get one profile with it, so that's a one-to-one mapping. If you create a Facebook app profile within Analytics 10, you get one profile with it. Same thing with site. So if you're at a point where you've created all your stuff in Analytics 10, everything's a one-to-one mapping, you just won't see that profile list because it'll essentially be equivalent to your spaces list and kind of redundant. Yeah.
In Insight today, you have like less than 20 whatever this profile that shows the standard view. Mm-hmm. The same thing here, or is it always going to be in this compact view?
I think the only thing that we're showing is the compact view. Okay. Yeah, regardless of the number that you have, just to kind of simplify things. And it's really kind of a transitional option for, especially if people are familiar with it and also want to be able to sort by profile, because people are obviously quite familiar with their profile names at this point. Yeah.
Are we supporting parent-child profiles?
No. Yeah. So good question. Parent-child profiles are not supported in Analytics 10. Okay.
What is the limitation for a number of characters that a profile name can have? What expect that a limitation like the names or names?
You know, I don't know offhand. Do you guys know? Yeah, the question was about the limitation on the number of characters that a profile name can have within Analytics 10. I don't know what it is. I think it's probably going to be the same as Insight, but I can follow up on that, find out what the question answer is. All right, and so this is kind of an important topic, and also I'm going to refer you also to another document on this at the end of the presentation today regarding the mapping of profiles to spaces. So as you know, we have lots of customers out there, and they have lots of profiles, and we are going through an effort to map existing profiles to spaces. And one of the ideas behind spaces, especially in site spaces, is that we want to be able to track and group all the profiles that are tracking the same domain together. And so our mapping procedure that we're going to be using, that customers will see right out of the gate, is basing that mapping on this website URL field that you see either in the profile list, or if you edit a profile, you'll see it inside the profile details. And that's a field that has traditionally been has been used, I think, originally for helping to map in some page titles, but it's very much an information-only field at this point within on-demand. And it is populated well in many cases, but not well in some other cases. And so this is a field that we're going to be using to map to a simplified version of that field, a simplified version of the domain field. And what we're doing in the mapping is, I'll come back to that. We're dropping off anything to do with the protocol up front, HTTP or HTTPS, including the slashes, and we're also dropping off anything after the domain, the slash, etc., and then grouping those things together as and including the subdomain as well. So subdomain is there, domain is there, and then those things all get grouped together. So as you're looking at this excerpt from a Webtrends Webtrends_com account, we see that we've got 4 profiles. They've got 4 different website URLs. Those are going to be mapped to 4 different site spaces, and those site spaces are going to look like this inside of Analytics 10. So as you can see, the protocol got dropped off, any slashes got dropped off, and any file or additional path information gets dropped off as well. Now, if I had in this example, insight.webtrends.com, we happen to have 7 profiles, just because we happen to have a couple different ones that are filtered differently, but they're still reporting on the same domain. So those would all get grouped together into one space. So what we're looking at here is we have blog.webtrends.com has 2 profiles in it. Generated.webtrends.com is 1. Webtrends.com in this case is 1. And then inside.webtrends.com has 7 profiles with that exact same domain. So this is one of those things that, again, I'm going to point you to this at the end of the presentation today as some pre-work. We talked about this with a couple of our customers and talked about it with a couple of the TAMs at this point, that this is one of the opportunities that customers will have in advance or after the fact of the release to be able to make some adjustments to these and say, if I type some garbage in there, and in the past you had the ability to type in HTTP or ASDF, there's a couple of those things out there, they have the opportunity to clean this up as they go forward.
Is this automatic or dynamic?
Yes.
Yes.
It's live. It's not a one-time operation.
If I change my URL, the profile
Immediately.
Yeah. So the question was whether this is one time or dynamic. It is dynamic. So there will be a one-time operation that takes place over the weekend of the deploy. But then if you change it after the fact, if I change blog.webtrends.com, I change that to insight.webtrends.com, the profile that I change is going to be reassigned to the space of insight.webtrends.com. So it is going to be dynamic. There's a sync process that we're putting in place where that's going to be pretty much immediate that gets reassigned to the appropriate space. All right. So regarding some best practices for new spaces and profiles, so we touched on a couple of these things a little bit earlier, but I think this is pretty important to know if you're dealing with customers a lot and they kind of have their ways set for their site spaces. And I've got 12 filters that I've put together, and when I put those 12 filters together, I get exactly what I want. I'm filtering out internal traffic, other stuff, and I'm filtering in certain things. So if I'm a new customer and I'm creating a new site space or profile, the best practice would be to use Analytics 10 to create the site space. So you'll receive the new site out-of-the-box reports, and if there is a need to customize, then you can still go back and edit that resulting profile in on demand. So you have some ability, if you want to, at that point, to add filters, etc. If I'm an existing customer and I'm creating a new site space or profile, but I happen to have a desired set of reports, filters, URL rebuilds, data sources, etc., that I have previously configured, and I think that's the way to do it, and I'm really happy with that. Your best practice, go back, use your on-demand UI, create the new profile, or copy a profile, and then make the changes that you need to for that profile. And again, you will see, as you create those profiles within on-demand, you'll see those assigned to spaces within Analytics 10. Third item there, if I'm an existing or a new customer and I'm creating a new mobile app or a Facebook space, your best practice is to use Analytics 10 to create the space. So we've kind of been shoehorning in Facebook apps and mobile spaces within on-demand up to this point. But one of the things that Analytics 10 is especially built for is for really quickly being able to get you out of the gate with creating mobile app spaces and Facebook spaces of any kind, apps or pages. And so, if there is an absolute need to go in and customize, like I've got to add some custom reports to my mobile app space because I'm populating a special variable, I can go back and do that in on-demand as well. But for getting yourself up and running really quickly for Facebook, mobile apps, or Facebook apps and Facebook pages, and any mobile apps, you have the ability to do all that within Analytics 10, and we feel pretty confident that your best practice is to go into Analytics 10 and do that. Okay. So what this really reflects is the fact that we are stressing quick time to value for these new space types and also for new site spaces for new customers, but we're not taking away that immense flexibility that Webtrends has when creating your site profile that you're very used to today. All right. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Julie, who's going to walk through some of the details of the various space types as you see them in Analytics 10.
Okay. So each space type is going to have a very simple, in some cases, 2 to 3 step workflow. And in this case, you have that plus sign in the upper left. You click, you select that you want to create a site space. You plug in your domain, click Next. You have just a couple of things to enter. We'll automatically capture the name off of that domain, or you can change that to whatever you like. You'll also notice that you have the option to have the Webtrends tag data plus PostRank, or just Webtrends or just PostRank. And if you recall in the beginning in the administration settings, if you've disabled that PostRank option, you won't have that selection there. So that will be completely hidden from you. Select your time zone, click Save, and then we'll present you with the option to access the tag. So you can download the basic tag here, and we have embedded the ECS ID in that step, or we can reference you to the tag builder, or you have the option to send the information to whomever is going to tag your site. So a very quick, kind of a 3-step workflow to get you up and running with this site space. If, for example, you create your site space here and you do have an existing data source that you want to use, you can create the profile here. You can go back to the on-demand user interface, edit that profile, and select an existing data source. So that's an option too. So once you've created these different spaces, how do I edit them or delete them? When you look at the dashboard for that particular space type, there's going to be this cogwheel. You select that, and it will take you into the options to edit or delete. You have the ability to change the thumbnail if you would like. You can select a custom thumbnail. We talked about some of the limitations before. You can also change the name and some other settings. One thing you don't see up here is the post rank metrics. I think it's on the next slide. One thing, too, that I wanted to point out is that your external data, like the post rank or the iTunes data, is only associated to the default profile in the space, and there can only be one default in a space. So if I have 10 profiles within my site space, I'm only going to see that post rank data with that primary default profile within that space. I thought we had, Chris, did we pull out the ability to change the default profile within the space? Oh, I'm sorry, it's right there.
No, that's the image. Yeah, I think you can readjust the default profile. I think it's in the space dash.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you can pull down and change it.
Okay. So yeah. Okay, so here's a quick kind of piece together image of our site space dashboard. So you'll have your thumbnail up here. You'll have your categorized news set of out-of-box reports associated to the space. And I'll get into the reports in just a moment. All of these key metrics are going to be trended. If I click on page views, I'll see the trend, and you'll see the current time range compared to the same time range prior. And it's very interactive. You'll also have this interactive geographic widget. So you can click in, you can scroll in, zoom in. Pretty neat widget there. And then something new that we're going to have is traffic sources, and we're going to be pulling in social refers into this traffic source as well. So, and functionality that we had previously in site with annotations and RSS feeds and notes, all of that is still available in this dashboard too. So.
If I could clarify that after the session drawing, the traffic source, is this going to be incorporated there, or the options there are from peaks or sources?
I'm going to defer to Mike on
Yeah,
that.
we recognize that that's a custom traffic source still. Yes, that's still the override, basically. The TSR value. That's still recognized.
And how do you demonstrate the social library for traffic, for this traffic?
Yeah, I'm actually going to go through that in a few minutes.
Okay. So PostRank. We have a partnership with PostRank, and we're going to pull in some external data from them. There's two types of data that we'll be pulling in, and the first is the domain level engagement score. And what this score reflects is how often our domain, or the domain that you're tracking, is mentioned in various social sites. So how many times was Webtrends.com mentioned in Twitter? How many times did it appear on a Facebook comment, etc.? So we'll be pulling in that score, and that will show up on the site-space dashboard. But in addition to that, there will be a dimensional report that will list out the different engagement sources that make up that score. So I did a lookup on the webtrends.com domain, and these were the different social sources where our domain was mentioned. And so those values that you see over there for delicious bookmarks 40, etc., those values make up the engagement score of 714. I don't know what the what that calculation is exactly, but for some other sites like New York Times, there's probably 30 different sites or engagement sources that are listed there. So we'll have that as a dimensional report in the out-of-box report set. No, it's not. But one nice thing, too, is that if you wanted to create a site space that had post-rank data only, you could put it in for a competitor or for any domain, really, and pull back a report for what is their score, how do you compare to them. Okay. So with each space type, we have completely rebuilt all of the reports associated to it. So in the site space out-of-box set, we have totally rebuilt all of the reports with the exception of 5 built in. The visitors by number of visits, it has been renamed to frequency. There's the on-site searches and the spiders report. Those are really the only built-in reports that remain, but every other report has been completely rebuilt. We've really consolidated the full list of reports. We have a proliferation of reports over the years where we couldn't modify them, so we just created a new one and added an additional measure. But we've really collapsed a lot of those reports. So for example, if you had a pages report and an exit pages report and an entry pages report and single pages, etc., we've collapsed all of that down into one single pages report and added the additional measures to it. So there's a much more condensed list of reports. You'll notice, too, that they've all been renamed as well. So our padding reports are pages next and pages previous. This kind of gives us the ability to group similar reports together in the table of contents. In the end of this deck, there is a list of all of the reports that are included in the out-of-box report set. So when I create a site space, these reports will be available to you. And if you go back to the on-demand user interface, you'll see that report pack enabled for Analytics 10. But you can also add in all of your existing reports as well. If you had a previous built custom reports, you can add those in as well.
So these will take the place of default ones that we built, right?
If you create a brand new space in Analytics 10, you'll get this default set of reports.
About existing ones.
They remain unchanged. Both the ones that we use to ship before and the customers ones that they've had. So we'll get bigger.
So if you are an existing customer and you log into Analytics 10 for the first time, you're going to see all of your existing profiles in the new user interface with all of your same existing reports. We're not going to add these new reports to your existing profiles.
Can I add?
Yes, you can. Also, one thing to note too, one of the reasons we changed the names is to distinguish the previous version from the new version. Also in the reports, you'll notice a number of different visualizations, some different tools to help you look at the data to your liking. There's this option in the upper left corner to either look at it based on bar chart, you can look at spark lines, or you have this heat map function, which is pretty helpful. And then again, we have trended all of the report data. So previously, you could just see the tabular list of information, but now it's been trended over time. So it's a lot of effort put into getting this trend.
So again, that's the blue line there is which ones
our highlight for trend up above.
Correct.
Can you, for annotation, something to fill out the report?
I'm sorry, what?
Annotation.
I think
the metrics all one.
Yeah.
Can you compare to
Okay. So let's dig into some of the mobile spaces. Again, it's a pretty simple create workflow. This is the same workflow for BlackBerry, Android, Windows, and our other mobile app spaces, other being the generic non-platform specific space. One thing to note about the thumbnail is that we don't have the ability to go out and automatically capture that thumbnail, so you do have the ability to upload your own. The exception is with iOS. If you put in your iTunes credentials, which I'll get to in just a moment, then we can go out and automatically capture that thumbnail for that app. But for the other mobile space types, it's a manual upload step. So provide the name of the app, choose a time zone, click Save, and then we will provide you the ability to download the appropriate SDK for that mobile space type. Okay. So for your iOS spaces, we provide the ability to connect to iTunes, and you can skip this option if you wish, but if you put in your login credentials, then we will go out and we'll grab some of this additional data from iTunes Connect about your downloads and revenue and so forth, and those metrics will show up on the iOS space dashboard. And as I mentioned, as Mike mentioned previously, you can disable the option to provide this information from the administration panel. And then an example of the mobile space dashboard.
Do we have any idea on how close to real-time an iTunes API is?
I think it's...
I don't know offhand. I don't know what their refresh rate is. I know that Facebook can be as much as 3 days old. But I think iTunes is the same day. Better, I don't know.
When are we going to grab that? We can grab that for analysis runs or once a day data collection?
Once a day.
Also, one thing to note is we do have space-specific terminology. So for our app-based spaces, you're going to see screen views and sessions and users instead of the page views and visitors and visits. Okay. These are the other types of mobile app spaces. So if you have a mobile customer that has an app that isn't specific to one of these platforms, we do have some support for them with the DC API. So Facebook. Here too, we provide you the ability to put in your Facebook credentials. Mike demoed this a little bit earlier. One of the challenges with using Facebook Insight, not our Insight, but Facebook's version of Insight, is that you have to be an admin on the page or on the app to be able to see that information. And if you want anyone else in your organization to see that information, you have to give them administrative rights to the page or app. In this case, we kind of work around that by, I could come in here and I could put in my Facebook login credentials, and it'll save that, it'll save my Facebook ID, it'll save my authorization token, and anyone else in my organization who wants to create a Facebook page or app can then just click on my credentials and log in and see that information. So you don't have to be, other people in your organization, they don't have to be an admin or developer on the app to be able to get this information from the Facebook API.
Julie, in that point, you're not really logging in, but you're, I think that's
correct, sorry.
You're accessing the data about specific objects that that admin has.
Correct. you're basically enabling this authorization token for us to go out and retrieve the data from Facebook.
I think it's important between customers, you're not overriding what Facebook is trying to lock down.
Another important note is that while we do retrieve the data daily from Facebook, there is about a 2 to 3 day lag time in what they send to us. So if I were to go out and capture the data today on the 12th of April, I may only get data up to the 10th of April. So, okay. So for a Facebook page, it is only Facebook API data. There is no Webtrends tag data for the Facebook page space. So I can connect to Facebook, I can put in my credentials, or if someone in your organization has already provided that authorization token, you can select their login or their credentials, and it will pull back all of the pages, in this case, that that person has permission to. So I can create a Facebook page for Coke. I can name the space, and I can select, actually that option should not say Webtrends and Facebook. It should just be, well, that option shouldn't be there altogether because it is Facebook only in this case. Okay. So for the Facebook page dashboard, again, it's all Facebook API data. There is no Webtrends tag data here. We are pulling back the wall posts from that page. You can make some notes and alerts, etc. Again, the same geography widget that you saw on the previous site-based dashboard. And we're also pulling in the demographic data. And there's a pretty lengthy list of reports available based on this data. So there's a total of 24 reports. We are trending them over time. They are updated nightly. And again, there is a little bit of a lag time in what we receive from them. One kind of nuance about the Facebook data that I also think is worthy of calling out is the countries information that they send to us. The API only sends us the top 20 countries for that day. So if you're not getting the same set of top 20 countries each day, your total country count over time is going to be a little off. So, for example, if Germany comes back today with 100 views or visits, but it doesn't come back tomorrow, and it doesn't come back the next day, but then does come back, it's just going to throw your daily trend for that specific country off. So that may be something that our customers will notice in the data.
If you end up trending on a specific country and falls into the scenario that you just described, things like that, end up with a zero count on the graph, or that's what we remember? Just let it.
Should be a hole. Should be a hole in the graph.
There's always more geographic information up for the rest of the attitude.
Geography is pulled out on that one.
Right. Yeah. Also with this API data, in many cases, there's just one dimension, and the one dimension is the app. And so in this first row, you'll just see this long app ID, but then you'll have all these measures associated to it. So that is expected. So for example, if I have, I think of a good example. So ages, gender, those are dimensional reports that you can see. But one of the examples is like the total number of likes. So there's only going to be one dimension, which is the application itself. But then you'll have how many new likes, how many people unliked, et cetera. So there'll be a long list of measures, but just the one dimension. Any other questions?
So awesome, by the way. So Facebook page comes with, everybody gets Facebook page API. That's great. The data lag is basically small. Are we seeing consistent 2-day lag, or is it all over the map?
It's pretty consistent at 2 or 3 days.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know what time of day they update the data.
And we check it nightly.
Yes.
And then on the alerting,
So if I set an alert that says, alert me if I don't get so many views
today, on a day, when will I see that alert come in for Monday's activity? Will that be something Wednesday because you got to do last?
there's no alerting on third-party data.
Okay.
One thing that in the old, in on-demand, we used to have last updated on top, saying the last updated report. So the real-time stuff is easy enough, but it'd be nice in the future, like even for this or for the other report, that last run date,
It's a good
so that
idea.
you can have an idea. Because right now, it's kind of like this. I just looked at that the other day. This would be really useful. That we're creating, we're just last updated.
Good idea.
Right, nice to know. We actually went and got it, but it just wasn't there yet.
Yeah, that's what you're going to get.
Any other questions, Derek? On you. Okay, so Facebook app, similar way of providing your credentials. Will go out and automatically detect all of the apps that you have developer rights to. So this is a little different than the page. So for the page, you need to be the administrator on the page, but for the app, you need to have developer rights to the app. So then we'll go out and auto-detect those apps, and then you can select the one that you want to track. And you can select to either have Facebook only, or you can have both the Webtrends tag data along with the Facebook data in this case. Okay. So once you save, then we will provide you with the download the SDK option. And Eric Butler and his team, they are making a lot of changes to this SDK, especially around campaign tracking, but that is not available in this particular release. It'll be up and coming. I don't know the timelines for that. And here's a quick view of the Facebook app dashboard. The metrics on the Facebook app dashboard, again, are just Facebook API data-based. We haven't put any of the Webtrends-based metrics on this view, primarily because there could be some differences in the data, what they're tracking versus what we're tracking. So, and in some cases, depending on how they've instrumented their app, they may not get back views or they may not get back users. So,
This is what the Webtrends apps
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
This is the Webtrends apps and in shape or form, or are you talking
Well, these are the Facebook apps that have been tagged with our data.
If these Webtrends apps create a Facebook app, we can pull back the app data to the Facebook
Right.
app. This is the Facebook's collecting data on the app. But there's no integration directly between Webtrends apps and this.
But a Facebook app is integrated in Webtrends apps.
Yeah.
As long as you're a developer on it and you provide those credentials here in Analytics 10, you can see that Facebook app is able to
Facebook API data.
Need some
Good question.
new jargon. Okay. So the out-of-box reports, there's 49 reports. That's a combination of tag-based reports and the API-based reports. They're all categorized similarly to the other out-of-box report sets into people, content, events, and technology, and that data is trended over time. And in fact, this trend line is a good example of what might happen with your country's report if that country doesn't come back in a couple of days. There'll just be a break in the trend line.
Okay. Sorry. We duplicate reports at all on that? Like, we get geographic data from the Facebook API. What about the geographic data we get, like, in instance, if you use a Webtrends app?
Right. So there is no duplicate data. So we're not providing our version of a country's report with the Facebook API version of a country's report.
So if you look at a Facebook app space, certain reports are going to be API only versus what you get in general profile that can be sent from that tag Webtrends app.
Well, in this, yes, that is correct. But in this table of contents, you are going to have a mix of API-based reports as well as Webtrends-based reports, and it's not especially obvious which ones are based off of our tag and which are based off the API in this list to the users.
And these are customizable like any other profile.
Yeah. As far as the analyzed reports, the ones that Webtrends analyze.
Was there anything that stops something?
Nope.
Go nuts. Use your users.
Okay. So just a question that may surface at the moment. We don't have the ability to support the changing of their credentials or to remove them. It's something that
People leave companies all the time. We're just talking about that. It's like there's not really a concept of a company login for a Facebook account. So if somebody quits on their end, they're kind of so well.
it's an issue we're aware of that we need to work through.
Yeah. Okay, problem. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but if you log into one, leave it there. If you log in
Well,
with a different account, then might right?
Correct.
So anytime while you see the knowledge that the account is available, right?
Correct.
there are workarounds actually.
Yeah.
If you re-authenticate, even if the same person will override what was there. So it's not a long-term solution, obviously, and we're going to get right on resolving it. So it's really a short window with this issue.
Okay. I'm going to turn it back over to Mike.
All right. So we've touched on a couple of these things already, but I want to go through them and just kind of emphasize the things that you're going to see differently in on-demand itself as we go, as we roll this out. So a couple changes that you'll see within the profile wizard. So this is a couple places where changes will be evident. So the first thing is the process of selecting a report pack itself directly is going to be removed from the Create Profile Wizard. So the reports that you have access to today, like if you have the Commerce Report Pack, those reports are still going to be in there. If you look in your custom report list, you'll still see Commerce Report Pack as the report pack name. But we're just collapsing this out of the new Profile Wizard. So you don't see this anymore, so you have to go and select your reports. And then this field right here, again, this is a shot of the current new Profile Wizard. This field website URL, there are some changes around this, and also a new field that gets injected here. So keep an eye on that. As I change the screen, you'll see the report pack selection step is gone from your basic Profile Wizard. And there's a new thing in here that is really parallel to the space types that we just saw. You have the ability to select the profile type. Again, this is in the new Profile Wizard. You won't see this in a copy profile wizard or the copy profile process. In the new Profile Wizard, you have the ability to select one of these space types. So it's going to default to site, and so if it defaults to site, then this name changes from website URL to domain, and it gives you a message here around that process of how the value that you put in here in this domain field will be the thing that we use to map to your space name within Analytics 10. And then also, what's underlying this is the fact that if I choose any one of these types, I'm going to get that new set of out-of-box reports that are associated with that if I'm going through the new Profile Wizard. Okay?
If I'm not licensed for mobile, I wouldn't see the phone app, right?
Correct, but you wouldn't see those if you're not licensed for mobile, and you won't see Facebook page and Facebook app here as well. Those are going to be set up within Analytics 10. Got another question?
That was the question. Facebook app and Facebook page. So since it's not part of here, I'm assuming that would show up in the profile.
Right, so Facebook page will never show up as a profile because it's API data only from Facebook. And the
Part of the reason it's not nothing.
Right, and then Facebook app, we don't ever want you to create a Facebook app Webtrends only profile. So basically, if you did that here, that's what you'd be creating is a Facebook app Webtrends only profile. And since the key metrics on a Facebook app dashboard are coming from Facebook, we want all those to be created within Analytics 10 for Facebook apps. So that's why you'll see only these choices ever within the old interface, the on-demand interface. And you will not see these 5 mobile app choices if you're not licensed for mobile apps.
I do big roll-up profile with handles and stuff, yeah. A profile with handling multiple domains. Like, that's a big one.
Yeah, so for your roll-up profiles, I believe there's still I have to check on that, but I believe there's still the website URL field associated with that roll-up profile. That's how it's going to get mapped into a space name in Analytics 10.
You can just name that field in a way that makes it evident in space world. So it's like code roll. It's not an actual domain, but it essentially becomes the name that's used. So it's not really doing anything with that domain. As you're creating a new space in the A10 UI, it'll help load the image that you want to show. It's that part of the process. I guess in a tag world, or in a non-tag world, we use this field to prepend the URL. You know, in the old log file days, we didn't have a domain on every get. We use that field and tag did that pretty much. So actually, I don't know of any that comes through that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good question, though. But I think one thing I'll do also, like I usually do with the training, is add a Q&A on the training PowerPoint page. I think that's going to be a good one to answer. Okay. And again, so this wording here is a little bit different. And if I selected site, I'll see some wording related to site spaces. But if I select one of the other options, like iOS app, this changes the app name, and then I'm still entering the same field. This is still the same field that's going to dictate what space this profile gets mapped to. Yeah, Dave?
These profile types, will they be surfaced elsewhere, like if you were editing a profile, for example?
No, actually, in fact, you'll see it when you're editing it, but it won't be editable at that point. Yeah, once you've gone through the create profile process and you've selected it, you can't come back and say, oh, actually, that was a Windows phone app or a site app. Yeah. All right. So traffic source, we talked about this a little bit earlier. So there is a slight change in logic, and so I've called out here on the left what the change in logic is, and what I want to point out is, so these two at the top have not changed at all, the distinction of paid and organic search. This is a new category, this social category, so that's going to be the value of just plain social. And there is we're actually leveraging the keywords.ini file, where we generally contain all of our search engine list. There's a social equals 1 indicator within that file. So we're kind of dual using the keywords.ini file for both search engines and social referrers, and really it's one or the other when you're inside that file. And so there's a short list that I'm going to show you. It's kind of our initial going in list that will be there. And so this is the value that you'll see in the traffic source dimension values. Then we also are going to be renaming a couple of values. So previously non-search campaigns is now just called other campaigns, because if we really wanted to do it, it would be called non-search and non-social campaigns, which was getting a little bit long. So it's just called other campaigns. And for other referrers, we're calling that referring sites. So it's really kind of a drop-through set of logic. If it doesn't get caught by paid search, organic search, or social or other campaigns, then it's going to be under referring sites. And then there's still the other, or there is other now, which used to be called direct traffic, which is not necessarily always direct traffic. That can be traffic referred to from an app where you just don't have a referrer. So choices here were to call this, keep calling it direct traffic, which was incorrect, or call it other, or call it no referrer in log, which wasn't a very nice name either. So we're just calling this one other. And then the override parameter still is in existence. That's at the top of the chart. If you have an override parameter on your on your hit, that is what the value for the traffic source is going to be. Okay.
So if I post, if I'm a customer, I post something on Twitter with a campaign ID variable, it's going to show up as social and not a campaign.
It's going to show up, if it's on Twitter with a campaign ID, it'll show up as social. Yes. Yep. Not in both. And this is really similar to if you post if today you have a Google search campaign and you have a MCID attached to it, that's going to show up in paid search today.
Right.
You know, that's kind of the fact that it's kind of in my mind, it's kind of an imperfect way of creating the traffic source, just because we have kind of the legacy of WT search, this concept of paid and organic search, as well as the campaign, which may or may not be attached to that. Like you may or may not have a campaign ID.
Sorry, go rat hole, so I'll stop it. I think social is like search. There's paid social and there's like organic social.
Right, and there's campaign IDs on social, and there's none, some without. Yeah, and so you kind of have that mix. And so there are some imperfect ways. I think part of this, as I get into the campaign stuff, there's some of that is addressed in the campaign, kind of simplifying very campaign-specific reporting around that. But yeah, very good question around that. Do you have another question, David?
Does this seem like get on the roadmap for visitor data mark?
You know, I haven't been involved in discussions with that. I think there's been some talk of it for getting that there. But yeah, so as far as I know, there's not a known roadmap item or timeline for traffic source stuff in VDM. Yeah. Yeah, BJ. Okay. Right now, regarding traffic source, any? Why don't you read me a couple of those?
Sure. Will Bing search results offered through Facebook be reported as social paid organic search?
Well, question was.
If it would work, we don't get the information coming through because of that a couple of weeks ago anyway, and there's no evidence supply. If that's changed, probably.
Yeah, I think we can check into that one. So the question on the phone was, will Bing search results coming through Facebook be applied as paid search or social? I don't know the answer off the top of my head. I know we have had difficulty getting the Facebook search refer information in correctly. So right now, as we go forward with this, any Facebook, if it appears in the refer as facebook.com, it's going to appear in social. If it appears in the refer as bing.com with a keyword attached to it, it'll appear in search, paid or organic, depending on the existence of WT search. All right. Another question?
Sure. Can we drill into GeoMap and get a breakdown of U.S. states?
Can we drill into the GeoMap and get a breakdown of U.S. states? I don't think that's there yet. I think it's just at the country level at this point. Yeah, in fact, it is at the country level.
Is there in finally searching video, like live or video, any other domain that is related to video?
We don't have a plan to do that at this point for like a traffic source dimension value itself. There's no plan to put any of the email type vendors in there as their own source. I mean, you could customize the tag and add that traffic source override value in for that. Yeah. BJ, any more on the line? Okay, good. Yeah. So we'll add some others for Q&A. And then just so you can see what this looks like in the keywords INI file, I have a feeling that as we get some experience more with the social, you'll see some changes to this. Let's see. So kind of summary of the social traffic source expansion. So the existing traffic source dimension is being expanded to include social. First page of the visit is still used to determine the traffic source. So we added some stuff into the keywords.ini. And then one nuance that you need to be aware of is Twitter. Like Twitter can be both a search and a non-search result. Right now we have it in there as a search engine, so for Twitter search. And the way that that's going to appear inside of the keywords INI, for those of you who are interested in this, is it's going to appear as two different items here, Twitter search and and Twitter. So Twitter search is going to have a keyword indicator, a Q indicator that Twitter uses, and Twitter without that, which is lower in the file, and so that would be encountered later, would be Twitter is recognized inside the refer, and then it's a social indicator. So Twitter right now is kind of the one oddball, and you all should be aware of that it'll appear in search if it's a search on Twitter, or it'll appear in social if it's a non-search Twitter reference. And then if you looked at something like Facebook or LinkedIn, which are a couple of the things that we have in there as social, you'll just see simply the ID, which is the string that we're looking for in the refer, facebook.com or linkedin.com, and then an indicator that says social equals 1. That just means it's going to be recognized as a social traffic source when we go through the traffic source logic. Yes? No, the full list that we have right now is this. So again, this is what I mentioned. I think it's going to probably be growing over time. So the list that we have there, as it stands right now, includes these 20 or so pretty common social sources. So this list can grow over time. I know several customers have already done their own traffic source override for social with probably a bigger list or their own specific list. So this is, I have a feeling I'll get some good feedback on this today regarding traffic source social sources. But that's where we stand today. So I just want to let you guys see exactly what that looks like as we move forward here. Any more questions, traffic sources? All right. Hey, so we're actually out of time. I kind of figured we'd go over a little bit, so I won't be offended if anybody walks out or drops off, but there's a couple more things that I want to go through. So one is the concept of groups within Analytics 10. So we're back into Analytics 10 here and talking about groups. So anybody who is within the Analytics 10 environment has the ability to create their own private groups, and that's just an indicator here that indicates the private group as you add a group. And a group is really just a collection of spaces and or profiles. You can mix and match and pull those into a group, and that can just be a place you go. It's almost like a shortcut where you go to say, you know what, I'm going to open up my groups. I'm going to go to my group that's North American profiles or my shoes division or something like that. It allows me to go to a smaller smaller subset of spaces or profiles. And you can mix and match different space types. I can pull in, a good scenario is I've got a promotion that's launched across my website, an iPhone app, and Facebook. I might just want to put those all in a group and be able to grab those. And I mentioned earlier that you can create a public group as long as you have the, create? I have to go back to that. The public group can be created if you have which right? There's a quiz for you guys, a quiz. I'm just seeing who knows.
Create profile.
Oh, there we go. All right, create profile, right. It was kind of hidden down in the corner there.
Some of us can read.
All right, yeah, thank you. All right, and then this is the drag and drop functionality. Right now, the way it appears in the UI, we've got these little red boxes. This may not be the final UI treatment on this, but you grab a hold of it. That's like your handle. You drag a hold of it and pull it into the group that you've just created, and that gives you the list of groups that you have there. So if you create a public group, anybody who logs into your account can see that public group. If you create a private group, it's only you who can see that.
If you create a public group, can anybody with a create profile right modify that group?
No, I believe you can only modify the group that you have created. So if you create the group, you're the modifier of that group. What's that? Wait,
We can't have more than one administrator managing that.
You can have more than one administrator managing the groups, yeah. So
Create a public group, only you can modify.
I think it's only you or an administrator. We have to get back to you.
yeah, let's check on that. Yep. So we'll check on that answer about exactly who can create a group that someone else has created, or modify a group that someone else has created.
I think it's just got to resolve this.
Yeah, good question though. Channels that you see there is really just kind of a relatively simple kind of built-in filter on space type. So these are going to be static. You can't change channels. You can't add channels to the list. You can select any one of these, and if you select mobile, for example, it's just going to give you all the mobile app spaces. And if you select social, it's going to give you today all the Facebook spaces. If we add more social channels or more social space types, those will get dropped into here by definition. If you go with website, you'll just get that that collection. So it's just kind of a built-in filter list of the different space types. So channels is a relatively simple concept then. Reports and categories. So again, I'm going to refer you guys to another document that has the how-to, the pre-work type thing for customers who may want to change their existing categories. So this is probably a really important thing for people to be aware of, and support or TAMs, anybody working with customers as to how they're going to see their reports categorized in Analytics 10. And the way it's going to work is this report category field, which is associated with the custom reports, is currently really visible only to people who are administering custom reports. So, it's used in various ways by different customers. That's going to be the field that we're going to leverage to categorize reports in this left nav. Here in the report view. So I've got a profile that I've selected here. I see my key metrics, but I also see over here. I also see the reports, and they're grouped into these categories based on that report category field for existing profiles. For new profiles, all the new out-of-box reports are going to be categorized and lumped into a group of 4 categories. That was a question? Yeah, the template, similar to Insight, templates are not visible within Analytics 10.
Templates are currently still used for which reports you have access to, so it's still the method of access or limiting access that's not used for organizational presentation.
Right, yes.
That's similar to the way it was with Insight. It's determining what's in your visible, not how we're presenting.
Right, and if you missed it on the phone, so the role of report templates in Analytics 10 is very similar to the role that you see in Insight today. So the reports that you see in Insight are governed by your template rights and profile rights, but there's no usage of the report template kind of categorization, chapter type categorization in Insight or in Analytics 10 today. Okay. Yep.
Are the new Analytics 10 reports, they put into their own categories, so they're distinguishable between?
They are put into their own categories, which I think I'm going to go through here in a second. Yeah.
People, content, but then technology and traffic.
But the content should rather pre-exist.
So in that list, content and events are new, but the other categories that you see there are existing.
Okay, I guess my question is how can we distinguish what's created to be a customer service or
So in the A10 UI, you can't really distinguish them, but in the on-demand UI, the report pack column will distinguish them for you.
Oh, what will it say?
I forget what the exact values are, but
Site, group the site for this pack. Well, the name of it, I don't know, we resolve whether it would be the Analytics 10.
Yeah, so the question was around, like, how will I distinguish the new reports as I look at this full custom report list within On Demand? So there's a couple different ways. So there's going to be a unique new report pack name, even though, again, as I mentioned, we're not showing a report pack as you go through the new profile wizard, but there will be a name here. I think we can add that to the Q&A on this. And then, the category will be these four categories. And I think there can be some overlap with some categories that you see out there today if someone has used technology or created a technology category.
Is the concern out of the administrator and their ability to select them, or at the user? Okay.
the time, like the users who try to look at the report, like don't file that so many reports. They don't have the same view of knowledge, and they classify like content and analytics on demand, and then in analytics and they also have category called content. So each one is the usability of it, you know, to get to their report. We have to face a learning curve that may be a little bit bigger than we're expecting.
Yeah. This is exactly why we have the program of administrators only, and administrators determining when their account is ready to page that, so they can do this prep work essentially. So you're just pointing to another category essentially that the administrators need to resolve.
Yeah, so I mean, so very good question, and very definitely one of the areas that's important for an administrator to see ahead of time and see do we need to make some adjustments to these categories as we move forward. In fact, that's one of the conversations we've had with our pre-release customers where they're like, yeah, we really want to get on top of this category renaming and at least understanding what it's going to look like in the new world. Okay. All right, so I'm going to talk about campaigns a little bit. So there's a new concept of campaigns within Analytics 10, and I think as you think about campaigns, don't really think about this as like being related to campaign reporting within On Demand. I mean, it's kind of a new approach to things, and really a simplified way of campaign tracking. And I suspect this is going to be one of those features that we evolve pretty significantly over time as we get some more feedback on this. But we're kind of starting it quite simply and not trying to dive into like a kind of a full-blown campaign management. And so you'll see it is relatively simple. It's based around landing page-based campaigns. So that's one of the selections that you'll make, and around conversion page, URL-based conversion pages as well. So there's some process of assisting you in identifying landing and conversion pages. So I think this is going to work really well for some customers. Some customers are going to have their own kind of way of doing things. It's not going to be a great fit for them. And that's where I think we'll get the feedback on that. So setting up a campaign, there's the two main steps that you do are selecting a landing page and a conversion page. You have the option as you go through the process of setting up a landing page. We're going to identify with a canned report. We're going to identify all those pages upon which we see the existing WTMCID parameter. So any campaign parameters that we see are going to be any pages are going to be shown in that list. When you select your conversion page, we're also going to be showing any pages where we have encountered the scenario conversion or the SICF equals 1 step, or the WT-conj equals star, which is a conversion step that's been used in the mobile world and has been used in a couple different cases out there. And then the other items are to enter a campaign name, start, and end date. And so the process looks like this. These are some screenshots that are not super pretty. I may try to update this presentation in the next couple days with some nicer ones. But as you create a campaign, you will first be presented with a step for looking at your landing, or to create, enter, or select from this list of suggested landing pages a landing page. And again, these are going to be the landing pages or pages upon which we have seen a WTMCID value. So you'll see the page, you'll see the ads. You click in here, you can actually see what those ad numbers are. You can select one of these or enter one of your own as the URL for the landing page. So that's where you select and identify your landing page. Conversion page selection is very similar. These will show you pages upon which we have seen either one of those conversion type parameters, and then you can either select one of these or enter your own as the conversion page. Then once you've done that, you've selected. This is probably not a great idea for a landing page to be your home page, but you got your landing page, your conversion page, your name. You'll have your start and end dates. I definitely need some better screenshots here. Your start and end dates, and then that will be essentially the basis for your campaign. Okay. So what's going to happen then after you have created that and you've saved it? You've now set up a campaign. There's a new database entity called campaign that saves all that information that you just created. And then we are creating a single kind of specialized custom report that's going to be used for that campaign. It's going to be, begin analyzing with the next analysis cycle. The first dimension of that is going to be your page filtered by that campaign landing page. So basically it's going to show me the traffic that's coming into that landing page, and I'm going to have views and visits and conversions based on that conversion page. The second dimension is going to be a special dimension. I'm not going to attempt to explain this in complete technical detail, but right now it's going to include the ad ID and then what we're calling the campaign source, kind of a crunched up version of the traffic source. And this is actually created in such a way that we can start extending this onto different dimensions. So we're leveraging our custom reporting capability with this special custom report in the background, and this is really kind of a way for us to go toward leveraging our assets that we have within the product to create a kind of a simplified view of something like campaigns. And again, I think this is something we're starting relatively simple, and I think it'll be expanding over time pretty quickly. And that campaign source is a kind of a simplified version of traffic source, and partly because of, related to one of the questions that Derek asked a little earlier about, what do you do when you've got campaign IDs and it's also a social, where since we have ad ID and this campaign source as the different dimensions that you can select from within this report, we're kind of hiding that problem of having traffic sources with and without campaigns. We're allowing you to look at it in kind of an either way. Let's look at the campaign source without worrying about the campaign and then looking at the ad IDs themselves. So within the traffic source, you'll have these different values of search, which is combining the paid and organic, social, just as we talked about before, and referring sites for anything else. We're also introducing this concept strictly within this campaign reporting piece of internal, where if the referring page domain matches the page profile domain, we'll say that's an internal refer. Other is no refer, and then again the override is still respected here if we have an override. Yeah.
So are you using the old report, or?
Actually, it's being introduced with same visit attribution. So the question is whether it's using most recent or same visit. It's being introduced with same visit, and again, we considered kind of throwing both of those out there, same visit, most recent, but we settled upon using the same visit as the attribution. Okay. And so then your campaign dashboard will be leveraging that underlying report to show for that campaign that I created. I will have my traffic sources coming in here. Again, I need a cleaner screenshot of this. It'll show me my landing page visits and my conversion page conversions as well during visits that include that landing page. Then I'll have my ad IDs down here below showing what were my ad IDs that were encountered on this landing page, visits, views, and then conversions are out there. I think this will end up getting kind of condensed a little bit more so you can see more measures on the screen. Okay. Yeah, so campaigns, again, I think this is one of those things that we're going to be expanding considerably. I mean, there's a number of things. We've got a pretty good list of expansion options and improvement options out there for campaigns, including recognizing Google parameters instead of just our own MCID parameters, being able to select, instead of a URL-based conversion, select an existing measure or create a parameter-based conversion metric there as well. So this is one that I'm really anxious to see customer feedback on this and can get that feedback as we move forward. Any more questions?
Google campaign override instead of feedback or customized JavaScript or WebTrends.
Right now you cannot. I mean, you could use no, actually you cannot. I mean, that's one of those things that we talked about. But this ad ID parameter right now is strictly the WTMCID parameter. We're not recognizing the Google ID parameter. Again, that's one of those things that's very high up on the list of enhancements to be made to this campaign. But again, as I said, the first iteration of this is going out fairly streamlined and fairly simple, and with the need to get some feedback like that, like what's the most important thing to do to expand this capability.
Is there any revenue currently tied to this?
We're not tracking the revenue measures here yet. It's another one of those things that can be expanded. So really just looking at kind of basics, visits, views, conversions, conversion percentage, those are the things that we're going to be tracking. What's that? Yeah, I think we have click-throughs in there. Let me check on that as far as whether we have the click-throughs. It's right here. So this is one of the things, one of the visualizations of the report. It's going to be crunched down a little bit. Right now I think this is one of those things that's coming kind of late in the development cycle, is to kind of fine-tune that view of the reporting of the metric. All right. So we are way over time, but I just want to make you guys aware that there are some other things in the appendix that I want to talk about. I'm just going to rifle through them just so you know what's there. There's the information on the Pages dashboard. There's a slight change on terms of service. We don't want Webtrends people accepting terms of service on behalf of customers. So something to be aware of for those of you who do it, Dan Bowling and Derek Fine, and David Sinner probably as well. Some information about data exchange in Analytics 10 that you should be aware of. There's going to be a new data exchange. When that's going to be actually rolled out to people is going to be determined, but it's going to be space aware. So those new entities that you see in there, like spaces, are going to be aware. But probably the most important thing to note is that the 2.1 functionality that people are mostly using right now, that's not going to be changing. It's still going to be respected by Analytics 10 the way it is today.
Okay. So in terms of service, so we often get, instead of a trial for a new account, we get this stuff sent to us, and we can set up the account before we give it to it. So we're saying this is going to not allow us to do that?
This will allow you to, you will be able to go ahead and ignore that.
Okay.
But what we want is for one of their people, once they get, you'll still be able to go ignore and just like proceed on and set up the account as you can before.
Okay.
But I just want to make you aware of this because of the fact that if you ignore it, the is license accepted or is TOS accepted flag is still off for that account until somebody without a Webtrends.com email address goes in, and that means that you'll have to have at least one administrator who doesn't have a Webtrends.com email address added as the first user. Okay. So I knew I would get you guys on that one. I knew it. Some browser support. Probably the biggest thing to call out right here is that the IE7 support, which is roughly 10 or 11% of traffic to Insight today, it's dropping, but it's still fairly significant, is one of the things that we're planning on, but won't be sitting there right out of the gate for Analytics 10. And again, if that's something that's going to be a major stumbling block for a customer, then we'll work with them on the phased rollout and maybe just not expose it to them until IE7 is supported. Let's see, a couple of miscellaneous Q's and A's there that I'm not going to go through. The list of out-of-box report sets for the site, mobile, Facebook, pages, and apps. Little information about the mobile app SDKs, and so for those of you who work with these, this is pretty important. That there's been a pretty significant effort among the development team on the SDKs to true up all the SDKs because they've kind of been developed kind of in a stair-step manner. Like every time they go to a new platform, they find out new and important things, and they add that to the latest one, and the other ones might fall behind. But there's been an effort over the last, I don't know, 6 weeks or so, David, to true those up. So where commonality can be found, they've been commonized and trued up to be very consistent. So a little bit more information there. There's one Connect doc on at least one of these topics.
When we do
This is kind of related to the DX changes that are coming as well, to be space aware within Analytics 10. Yes.
I have a data within your house, are you going to import after July?
So the question is, if you have a dashboard in Excel that uses DX 2.1 now, I assume, is it still going to be working in July? And the answer is yes. Yeah, all those methods that you use are going to be still respected for everything that you call them for right now. Let's see. Along with parent-child profiles not being available, you still will not see scenario analyses and path analyses. So this is, again, similar to Insight, and one of those things that we are aware of. We'd like to get in there sooner rather than later, so visualizations around scenario analysis, path analysis, those are still not available within Analytics 10.
So now at point in time, whenever I do a migration from software to on-demand, the historical data that is migrated into on-demand is guaranteed inside. The analytics and how is this going to work? Is it still just one account for the company, or can we push this data? Can we analyze? What are our options here?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the question was around, if you do a software to on-demand migration today, you will not get all of your historical data for those reports that you had within software, and that's going to be similar. Are you saying even if you don't do a reanalysis on that data?
If you do an analysis, you will see, because then on-demand will push the data to inside the
right.
database will be created. But just the historical data is not available. So the customer is pretty much starting from scratch in Insight today. The question is, if the same case for Analytics 10, or you guys that now?
No, that will be very similar to what you see in Insight today. Yeah, very similar to that. All right, and that is it. So I apologize for going late. I know we had a lot of material to cover. And again, if you didn't write it down at the beginning, this training document, if you want to pull it down, is at 1.2. We're going to be making some updates to that, and also we'll add a Q&A on the main page there with this PowerPoint attached. All right. On the phone, we're going to be signing.